let's just sew whatever. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be going over how to get like the perfect zipper on a zipper pouch or makeup bag, whatever, that has something like this. You could choose to do 2 zipper tabs, or you could just do where you kind of square off the top. We're going to call where the zipper pull ends when closed, the top of the zipper. You could square that off, but I find it super quick to just do zipper tabs. So the trick to getting the perfect size zipper is you want to make sure that you've got, depending on your seam allowances, about 3/4 of an inch from either side for the finished measurement. If it's a product that uses maybe like 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, you may be okay with 1/2 an inch. But for the materials I'm using, I like to go with about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Because I'm using vinyl for my zipper tabs, I can use 1 inch by about 2.5, and it would just be raw edges because it's a non-fraying material. So what I'm doing is I've added double-sided tape to the center. I'm laying my zipper tape down in the center and then folding that over, and then I'm going to sew along that kind of that raw edge necessarily, like about 1/8 of an inch from that raw edge. Alright, and then we'll just cut that apart. And we've got our zipper with zipper tabs prepped. So now it can't come off, and like I said, I find this to be a lot quicker than the method where it's squared on one side. So I'm going to be adding double-sided tape, just 1/8 inch wide double-sided tape, to where I'm attaching my zipper. That's going to help me keep my layers from shifting. If you're making a really simple zipper pouch, I don't know that something like this is necessary, but for wristlets that I'm charging, you know, 20 and up for, I do like to take the time to make sure that I get my zipper installed as nicely as possible. I'm just trying to find the right side of this fabric. The silkier side is the right side. Alright, we're then going to grab the front. If you have multiple zippers on your item, you may want to kind of take an extra moment to make sure your zippers are going in the same direction. Maybe you don't want to do that. That's okay too. But we are going to center that zipper. Along that top edge face down. So like I said, I've got about 3/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch from either side. I'm catching the raw edges of my zipper tabs. Well, the short raw edges, I should say. So I'm laying right sides together. And then I'm going to start at the end where my zipper pull isn't. I'm getting close to my zipper pull, so I'm going to leave my needle in, lift up the foot, unzip, and continue sewing. And now here is where you have options and where people can get confused, etc. So there's technically 3 ways you could top stitch it. There's 2 ways you would want to top stitch it. There's one way you don't. It's not great. So I'm going to press my lining and fold this down. So you might be thinking, well, I'll just top stitch all the way through my lining and my exterior all the way. I don't recommend it because you're not going to get corners on the sides of your pouch that look good. And the reason for that being is you are top stitching through technically 4 pieces of fabric, and they can't lay flat ever again. Because you're going to have, even if it's 1/8 of an inch, like you're gonna have that little bulge, and when you lay right sides together, you're going to have that bulge, creating excess bulk at that seam. So I wouldn't recommend the first way that I mentioned. I know you're like, then why talk about it? Because I want to tell you what you shouldn't do. So the second method would be to top stitch from the start of this zipper tab through your lining and your exterior. So you would start here, back stitch, come all the way down, and end your stitching here and back stitch. So you would leave technically your seam allowance unsewn. What that does is it keeps your lining out of your zipper if that is an issue. I am not as concerned with that because I am a little more experienced, so I get my distance from the zipper pull, from the zipper tape to the exterior and lining really good every time, most times. But what that does is it will keep your lining out of the way of your zipper pull, and it keeps it so your fabric in the seam allowance can lay flat like you need it to. It looks a little weird, but when the product is finished, it doesn't look weird, but when you're trying to put right sides together, it does. So my favorite method for top stitching something like this or any zipper pouch is to only top stitch through the lining, through the exterior, keeping my lining up and out of the way. So that's what I'm going to show you really quick. This is my preferred method. You want to make sure that you've got about, oh, Dorothy. My 2-year-old was playing with my little notions bin over here. I wondered why she said "oh no" earlier. Okay. So I've got about 1/4 of an inch showing. Okay, I'll restick that in a little bit. Of my zipper tape. So I like to back stitch, but only in the seam allowance, and then I'm going to continue on and back stitch again. Okay. So you'll see my fabrics can lay really flat and my zipper looks nice and finished. I'm going to press my lining and then we'll attach the other side. At the end of this video, I may grab some scrap fabric and just show you kind of what it looks like when you do the other two methods so that you can decide, because I'm definitely not here to tell you there's a wrong way to do it. You know, there's just different ways of doing things, and you can decide what works best for you. So again, I'm starting on the side where my zipper pull isn't. This is going to help me prevent my zipper from puckering too much. So leaving my needle in, I've got most of my zipper sewn. And now I can lift up, find my zipper pull, unzip it, kind of re-straighten, massage it flat, and continue on. And then we're going to leave these 3 layers together and fold down only this exterior piece. Alright, so now unzip your zipper about halfway so that it's not going to get caught in your seam allowances or anything like that. But you can see now these layers right here can lay nice and flat. We can line those up pretty perfectly. We'll add a clip. And our zipper tab is way out of the seam allowance, so I don't even have to worry about possibly catching it and potentially ruining the zipper pouch. So now if we had top stitched through our exterior and our lining, we would have a little bulge right there which would cause us to technically sew through like 8 layers of fabric. So you can see right there, you'd have this little bit of bulk, and it just wouldn't sit right in the end versus this, which lays nice and flush together. So I'll go ahead and finish sewing this really quick and turn it right side out so you can see what that looks like. Just a quick note, you want to sew right next to, but not through your zipper tab. So I'm getting as close as I can without my sewing machine foot overlapping that zipper tab, causing it to be really difficult to sew over. Now that's going to be easier if you're using a cotton fabric versus a vinyl for your zipper tabs. If you are using a vinyl or an interfaced cotton, just make sure it's not too bulky. I love how I'm talking to you like you're 2 years old. Thanks, Dorothy. Make sure it's not too bulky. Alright, another thing is if you have pretty big seam allowances next to your zipper tab, it can't hurt to just take a second to trim those down. So depending on my materials, I'll take a second and trim that down just a little bit so you can see the little curves right there. Alright, so I'm going to turn this puppy. And this is not a mistake, but this is something people will forget to do and wonder why their corners don't look so great, is they will forget to push them out just right. So what you want to do is take your thumb at the zipper tab, and it's not great yet, but we're going to just continue pushing until you see a little bit of that lining kind of come through as well. And repeat that on the other side. You can also use a turning tool or like a dull pair of scissors if you want. And then I'm going to close up my zipper pouch. Alright, and here is our finished pouch. So you can see our zipper tabs are looking really nice. They're not within the side seam, and that little bit is just open enough that it sits nicely. So you can see how nice those corners look. Our zipper isn't too terribly wavy. We're not at risk of catching the lining because it's small enough, or it's pressed down well enough. So I hope this tutorial helps you if you are struggling with attaching your zipper. There's tons of other methods out there, so feel free to comment down below and let me know what your favorite one is, or link to another video of something that might help if you're struggling with this. And don't forget to subscribe. Bye.